generally speaking. But we've done other stuff too, so.
Cool.
Hi, I'm Meeple Lady. I write a blog about board games and conventions and just talking to people. I'm also the co-host of a podcast, Hooked on Geek. That's me.
I'm Mark Street. I'm Board Game Corner and Dice Tower. Currently I'm heading up the Dice Tower previews, and soon to start a show with Z and I are going to do Tower Talk, and I have our own podcast, and we're all over social media, just tons of different avenues for our content.
Thanks, Mark. My name's Dan King. I go by the Game Boy Geek. I have a YouTube channel, a website, and over the last 5 years, my mission has been helping you find and enjoy the board game you love. And I've done that by producing over 1,500 videos, most of them being reviews, some of them being 2-minute reviews that allow you to quickly see if you want to spend more time looking at the real, the normal reviews. Also do audio podcasts with those reviews, and I help you learn games by teaching them to you in rule schools.
I'm Edward Euler. I host Heavy Cardboard, which started out 3.5 years ago as a podcast, and a year ago we branched into video, and we focus on the medium and heavier end of the board game hobby, everything from medium strategy games up to war games, 18xx, and we also teach and live stream over on YouTube and recently over on Caffeine as well.
Hello, I'm Kat, also Glory Hound on Twitter, Facebook, and all that other stuff. I demo games for Steve Jackson Games, and I love teaching people games. I also have a podcast where it's heavy entertainment, and we also talk about Kickstarters and the different board games we play, and kind of try to help guide you on what you should be getting in the Kickstarter market, as well as just the type of players that you play with if you have a party gamer. I mean, we have one of those sort of people on our podcast. So you can kind of pick the person that you connect with games, and then follow that person and what they suggest to you. So that's me.
So questions, what do you guys have as far as either how to get started or what goes into reviewing, or pretty much the gamut? We cover
even campaigns too, right? If you have a question about Kickstarter campaigns or even board gaming in general, we probably can answer some of those questions. We've worked hand in hand with people who have started with their baby that is their game, so that's probably one thing we could also facilitate in some way.
Now that you decided to become a reviewer, what's next?
Create a lot of content.
Yeah, seriously. So one of the things that, when Paul and I were talking yesterday, one of the things that we stressed was, step one, get started.
Just do it.
A lot of people get too focused on the production quality, and that should absolutely be secondary, because if your content is worth people following, they will find it. So step one, do it. It doesn't matter, $15 mic, that's what we started with. And, everybody has cell
phone camera, right?
Exactly.
To get started with.
Yeah, it makes it easy. It really does. I think also, too, making your entity and making that over everything all at once. So I think that making yourself easier to find by doing that, because, if you start putting out the content and everything, you want to be on Instagram, you want to be on Facebook, and you want to have everything as the same entity, and just get it set up all right away. Just do it all right away, and then just post everything.
How long have you been doing it? About 6 months. Okay, cool. And what kind of content do you produce? Is it video, is it audio, is it both?
I help him with the camera management.
Oh, okay.
Very
cool,
nice.
Cool.
Like editing, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I just want to get the background, because depending on where you're at. Good, man.
I was just going to say that for me, the things that I feel are most important in the 3.5 years we've been doing this, find something you're passionate about, first and foremost, because I assure you this is going to be far more work and far more time than you ever thought it was ever going to be.
You have to enjoy what you're doing, lot. Yes.
I would go so far as to say you better love
yes.
what it is you do,
It'll become a
because
labor of
not a
love.
single person up here now. A few of us, myself, I do it full time now, but I never started with the intention of being able to become my career. I did it as a hobby. So be passionate about it. realize what you're getting into. The amount of work is tremendous. And whether it's preparing for your show, or whether it's a podcast, YouTube channel, or writing, or whatever it is, then the amount of editing that goes into it. And then if you're into that type thing and you want to grow your channel, promoting it is a never-ending job. So be passionate. And the other thing is find something not only that you're passionate about, but that can be focused enough that you can actually cover it. Because there are a lot of outlets
The
that
hobby's big enough to expand upon, basically.
Right.
You can
Yeah.
even a niche thing you can do, and it'll work just fine because there's so many. All of us have something different to offer you. It's really interesting. You want podcasting. There's somebody that does that. You want live streaming specifically, or probably Instagram. Somebody here focuses on Instagram more than any of us do. That's just probably how it's going to work. And there's always holes that are missing. And all this advice I think works for not just board game reviewing, but anything. I mean, we would be considered, I guess, mom bloggers in some ways as far as how they do their content as well. For websites and Instagram and Twitter, they all focus on those things as well. So
Absolutely.
you can always take and learn something from any kind of reviewer or any kind of blogger.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it used to be like, even just a few years ago, when people would ask that question, an answer they would often get was, find something that no one else is doing. Well, there's so many people doing it now that I don't think that answer is valid anymore. So going back to what he was saying, and I'll even take it a step further that, again, the passion and the time and the love is, yes, find your niche, find something that you love, but also almost turn it backwards. Because I think at this point, a lot of people have seen how successful some people have been in the business and being able to make real money at it. And I think that has turned a lot of heads into people thinking that. And it's kind of an interesting thing because everybody that's at that point that is now making it successfully monetarily, none of them went into it with that being the main thing. All of them, all the big dogs have gone in this passion first, let me give to the community, and look what came out of that. Where now we're starting to see everyone going, wow, look what they're doing, I want that, and that becomes either the first step or a dream. And I'm not saying dreams are bad, dreams are excellent, but sometimes we're putting the cart before the horse. So I would say try to reverse that, because what happens is, and to what he said about the amount of work, is a lot of times we have uphill hopes but downhill habits. And I think the best way to get through that is to, instead of looking at the gaming hobby and the reviewing media place and saying, what can I get from it? If you swap that on its head and say, what can I give to it? Then everything else will take care of itself. As long as you're giving to the community in a passionate way that you love and you can continue to do it, then everything else will take care of itself.
Yeah. Anything that your passion's going to carry you through days you don't want to do it, days that you're not feeling well, or just, it has to be passion first. It has to, because I assure you, anybody that gets started nowadays, publishers aren't going to reach out to you because you have a blog, you have a podcast, you have a video channel. You have to earn that audience. Once you've earned that audience, then those other things come. But that passion has to be first. And I mean, all of us are stressing that because everybody up here knows how much work this is. And it's not, ooh, pity us. It's just heads up on what's coming. And it's got to come from here first.
You got to put it as a full-time job. I mean, even to start, 8 hours a day is not going to cut it.
Yeah.
I mean, anything that involves social media or blogging, any of that kind of stuff, you need to put in 10 hours a day. And there's always more. I think you never have enough time to do what you want to do. You're never going to have enough time. And there's too many games to cover now to where you're not, and that works for pretty much anything. So
I think people too can see the passion. So you can tell the difference between somebody who loves what they're doing, what they're talking about passionately, and you can hear that over a podcast, and you can see it over a video, as opposed to somebody that's going out there and going, you know what, this is kind of what I want to do for a job, and I'm going to put some notes together, and then we're just going to talk about, hey, here's a board game and stuff. No, people can see, hey, this is the board game I played, and it's super fantastic, and I'm going to tell you why. And if you're not doing that and you're presenting yourself with your passion, you're not going to get as many people to follow you because you're getting people excited.
Those
yeah,
people die.
Exactly.
I mean, they can't compete, and I mean, because passion outweighs almost anything else in
Absolutely.
this industry, and in a lot of industries as well. I worked in the film industry for a long time, doing whatever movies and stuff like that, like Sharknado kind of stuff. and it's a lot of work you have to put in meet the industry. You have to not going to cons is another huge thing to do. And,
Yeah.
You know, so.
And if once you get to the point where you've been doing it for a little while and this passion's been bringing you through and you're like, okay, well, I've tried this and I've tried that and I don't like that so much and I like this, and don't worry too much about what other people like. Do what you like, because that's what's going to get you through. But once you find what that is, and you've been doing it for a little bit, and you're like, okay, I'm in a groove. I feel like the oh, that was him. So that's usually me. This time it was him. So once you get past that and you've kind of figured out what works, what do you like doing, and you get to that point, then you can start thinking of things that are a little bit more tangible. And if you're prone to write things down, you can write this down. I was at a leadership summit a couple years ago, and the CEO of Ford, that used to be the CEO of Ford and Boeing, Alan Mulally, was there. And he wrote these things down. He talked about how he took Ford and turned it around. He said it all came down to three things. Once you're ready and you know you're at that spot. But the first is to have a captivating vision. Have something that is very tangible in your mind of where you're going to be, what you're going to be. Captivating vision. And leading down from that becomes a comprehensive strategy. So captivating vision, comprehensive strategy, meaning, okay, this is the vision, this is strategically how I'm going to get there, and then relentless implementation. This is how I'm actually going to do it on a day-to-day basis. And those three things, once I learned that from him and you start to apply that, you can apply it to anything, any business, but again, passion first, and then kind of apply that sort of thing, and it'll put you kind of in the right direction.
And on that note, you have to understand why you're doing it. Like, why are you being a reviewer? Why? And you have to know that answer. Because, and this kind of goes back to everything that we're saying, if you're doing it because you're trying to make money or you're trying to get free games.
Yeah, those are the wrong reasons.
But also,
You're going to struggle.
But not just that, but also understand.
There are those people though out there that try it.
But long term, you also want to know what it is your long term goal on this is. A lot of people have no interest in monetizing what it is they do. They just want to create. They want to give back. And you know what? That's perfectly okay. But know what it is that you're trying to accomplish by having whatever format that you have. And get started, be passionate about it, and go from there. That's, I mean, seriously, I never went to school for whether it's any kind of audio or video stuff. We've made a lot of mistakes along the way, but you learn as you go. But again, that's where that passion keeps pushing you to figure out. Like a $15 mic in Audacity. That's how our show ran.
And that's the great thing about now. There's so many resources on the internet where you can learn all these programs. You can learn if it's worth it to make the investment in certain type of equipment and certain type of programs. And that there's a wealth of information out there too. And also that takes time to research all that stuff while we're all learning how to do
And all of us either started with day jobs.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So it's all stuff on top of it. So it becomes a hobby in and of itself. So you have
really
board
does.
games, which is your hobby, and then content creation or becoming a media person is the other hobby.
Yeah. I'll give three other points of advice, because I think all of us going through this have made tons of mistakes.
Oh, God,
right?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people get, you talk about in board games, some people get analysis paralysis, AP, when they're like thinking about what they're going to do. I think a lot of times people get that when they're trying to figure out like how to make content or what should I make. And three things that I learned was fail fast, which means if something's going to be a failure, you want to figure out that it's not working quickly, as opposed to be putting in a year or 6 months worth of work, right?
Yeah,
so the
no,
first
that'd
thing
be
is
terrible.
fail fast. The second one is fail often, which means try as many different things as you can to see what works and what doesn't. Fail fast, fail often, and fail forward, which means when you do fail, sit back and have time to have that white space to reflect on why didn't it work. Did it not work because I just wasn't all into it, or did it not work because the audience, it didn't come over well? Because when you look back at that, it's never failure if you learn from it. That is called experience. So fail fast, fail often, fail forward.
Yeah, and it's completely okay to fail at something or figure out, I don't really like reviewing these little board games. I want to review very big board games, heavy cardboard board games. You got to figure out, some of this journey is figuring out just exactly how you want to review games or which part you want to focus on. And that's okay. And it's okay to try different things. And Game Boy Geek says, and just to fail at it. I mean, that's okay. That's part of the process. It's part of the whole process.
Yeah.
How long does it take
You're gonna get 8 different answers.
So how hard or how long does it take us to review a game? So yeah, go for it. We'll go down the line. This should be fun.
We'll get all different answers. I'm sure.
So, I mean, it depends on how lengthy the game is and how much effort needs to be put in to get understanding it. Like some games, you're going to have, I don't know, 30 pages of rules, to which point I have my editor go, here you go, read the rules. And
Outsource.
yeah, exactly, because not for me. And 'cause everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, right? And then after that, we play the game. Some people play it 2, 3, 4. I mean, it depends on how many times you want to play it. Usually we play about 2 or 3 times, roughly. If I like the game, I play it more. And then filming. Some people like to script. We script. Some people like to have screen, all that kind of stuff. Usually takes us like 2 days for a video. Editing is about anywhere from 6 to 8 hours, depending on the video. Some of them are shorter, some of them are longer, but roughly maybe 3 full days, including play testing. Probably could be more. Just depends.
So I haven't quite ventured into videos yet, just because I know how long that process is.
Yeah, it takes a long
It's
time.
actually, yeah. But for me, I just write about it, and then usually we play it a couple times. We get it in the game group, schedule it, just to see how it plays for a different number of players. Also, discussion to see what people like, what people didn't like, and then write up a review on it on the blog. And the writing part usually takes about a day or so, just depending, staging photos, editing photos. So that's my process.
That would take me a week. I don't do writing.
Well, I have a policy that we don't review any games unless we played it at least 5 times, because I feel like once you get to that 3rd and 4th and 5th game, you're like, oh wow, look at this strategy. You dive into it. So I literally can spend 1 to 2 weeks on a single review, and part of that is coordinating with my co-hosts when to play, because I have 2 different co-hosts, 3 really, depending on the podcast versus video. But it really, I want to make sure those games. Now there's some exceptions. There's some
If
little
you hate
card
the
games.
game instantly,
Right. If you hate the game.
then you don't play it 5 times, do you?
Even with the little games, like little card game stuff, there's still like a 3-game. I like to hit a 3-game limit, but
That's about right.
the 5. I really like to hit that 5-game, because there's been games that we hated until that 4th play, and we're like, oh wait a minute,
Everything comes together.
look how this comes together now. This is pretty interesting, and the stuff we can add to the video. And then as far as the production side goes, I'm probably way too much of a perfectionist, but I will sit there and spend easily 16 hours editing a video that is a 12-minute to 18-minute video. And because I'll go back and I'll do little things. I'll be shooting B-roll that goes over us talking, and I'll see the fuzz on the table, so I'll go back and reshoot. Because of stuff like that. It drives me crazy.
Ignore the fuzz.
It just
A
drives me
perfectionist
crazy.
editor.
Or I forgot to turn one of the lights on, or I have the overhead room light on. I'm like, those things drive me crazy. But it depends on what format we're doing. Reviews are different than previews. And previews, we don't play games as many times for previews, because it's a kind of a first gut reaction for previews. And we're not reviewing those games. We're just giving you kind of a lay of the land, a feel for the game.
Overview. Type,
Overview, yeah.
So
But
Twilight
reviews,
Imperium 4th edition, you don't play that 5
Yeah.
times to get the feel for it?
The thing is that, and I know other people have said, like I talked to Z about these, I don't know about playing that many times. I'm like, well, this really, I still feel like, and I'd like to get all my co-hosts involved. So there's tons of game time between the 3 of them as well. So it really is going to vary, but I mean, easily I can spend a full week on one review, depending on the game size. Previews and overviews are maybe a couple days that we spend on. And those are a little free-form when we film them as well. We're more like conversational about it. Here's like you sat down at the table with us and we're giving you an idea of how to play. Where the reviews are more structured and we're trying to hit some really important points in the mechanisms and so forth. So it's all over the board. And then for the podcast, it varies as well. Again, because we're not shooting video for that. But there's just a lot of different avenues that we go through. But I really like to stick to that 5-game limit, or as a rule for us.
For me, I've gotten my process pretty streamlined over the years. It varies on the game, but I'd say if I averaged it out, it's probably about 10 hours per game.
That's it.
They've said a lot of it.
No,
They've said a lot of it.
So our reviews are on the podcast side only. For the video side, it's just live streaming, full teaches, and playthroughs. That said, take Feudum, which is coming out here soon, I spent 20 hours preparing that teach for that alone. So there was that, and then our live streams range anywhere from an hour to 5 hours, depending on the length of the game. As far as the reviews go, we have an outline that Amanda and I, my co-host and wife, that we follow. And so we have a policy of 4 games minimum, because honestly, it probably takes us 2 games to play the game correctly, especially on the heavier end. We're getting rules wrong all the time. And so we want to make sure that we're getting everything right. So when we talk about the review that we're talking about, or that when we're reviewing the game, that we're reviewing the game that the designer or publisher gave us and not the game we think it was, which is subtle, but a big difference when you continually screw up rules. So outside of playing the game, anywhere between 6 to 10 hours of prep work for filling out our outlines, and then we record. You're talking about 2 hours of recording, and then it's usually, if on a 2-hour podcast, you're looking at 2 hours per host for editing that Amanda does. So anytime you add in a third chair, which we do on occasion, that's adding the length of the show that much more. So you're talking probably total evolution anywhere between 15 to 20 hours for a regular review on our podcast, and we do those weekly. So we're trying to play the games. The stuff that we're going to be reviewing in 3 weeks, we try and get a play of it in this week. That way we're working our way towards, and it's a continual process because it's constantly churning.
For me, it probably takes a little bit longer because I'm also a mother, so I have to work around having a kid around as well. And I also like my reviews to have a large sample size, so I like having a young child, an older woman or man, a gamer, a non-gamer. I like having different groups of people so I can get a feel of not necessarily how good the game is, but who this game is made for and what audiences that it will capture. Because as a hardcore gamer for myself, I'm going to love completely different games than other people. So that whole process of finding the right people, playing the game, getting how they feel about the game probably does take a week, just because I'm also working and also being a mother and then also trying to review games and get people together on my schedule. And then that's just the beginning process of that. Then on like a weekend day, I will take an entire day where, it might take 4 hours to do notes and podcasting and stuff, and then I luckily send my stuff off to somebody else that edits my stuff.
Smart.
Yes.
Is what we call that. Yes.
Which, it could take them anywhere from 2 to 3 hours to edit a 1-hour podcast with the type of people that you have on the show, whether they're saying a lot. I mean, you actually start practicing yourself. I'm not going to say anymore, You get better.
From public speaking classes where you learn
yes.
about that. That's how I learned. So I went to college first doing something completely different.
After
right?
you correct all the ums, you
Yep.
start realizing, I'm going to omit that from my vocabulary because I'm not doing it.
Silence is a whole lot easier to edit out.
Than the ums.
Yes. So for me, the process is quite lengthy because of the different process that I do from everybody else. So, yeah.
In working with designers, maybe especially indie or designers who want to crowdfund, what sort of advice would you give them as far as how expectations on how to work with reviewers, or maybe what to do and what not to do?
Okay, so, and just so the mics pick it up, so for working with indie designers or Kickstarter creators, how to work with them to get our reviews onto their Kickstarters, etc., how best to go about that process for the content or for the Kickstarter creator side. Well, Mark, that's kind of your bag.
We're doing a ton of that now, and and it's surprising because what's neat is that a lot of them are actually wanting feedback, and I said, well, this is not a review. But we'll gladly give you points that we think the game could improve, and they're super appreciative usually. And the flip side of that, the one thing that you could avoid is if you're asked someone to do a preview for you, that doesn't mean you get to be the editor and tell them, oh,
Yes.
you know what, I need you to shoot it this way instead. No, that's not how it works. And I've had a couple people who try to do that, and that's probably the biggest thing for me currently that I'm running into. But for the most part, just working with, and the timing factor too. And you know, we realize that you're trying to get your prototype sent to a lot of different people, but because of I'm doing these on the Dice Tower, the schedule is booked up into April already.
Yeah.
So I need to hold on to prototypes until probably campaign time. I can't just film yours now because I've got one next week that goes up. Yours isn't until April.
Yeah.
So I have to hold on to these prototypes as long as possible, and you have to be flexible if you want content from us. So things like that are very important. And I think just the willingness to let us create those videos in our format and to show your game. And we're not going to try to fake being excited, but we will try to put excitement into the video we really want people to see what your game looks like, and here's what this game is about.
And I would say, like, whether it's Kickstarter or not, if you're a designer / publisher or a small publisher, even for just non-Kickstarter stuff, just reviewer stuff, you need to become a student of the industry just like you are in anything else. If you're studying design and you're out there networking and learning from other designers, you also need to know which reviewers are the ones that are going to be the best ones for your game. And it might be different for one game versus another game. I see Michael Coe sitting back there from Gamelin Games, right? Like he's going to have a different person that's going to be really excited about Tiny Epic Zombies that just went gangbusters on Kickstarter, than his Heroes Over Landaria Sea, which is a huge, dudes on a map, 4X giant game, right? He might send those to the same person if that person is well versed in those games, but they might not be the right person. And so the worst thing I get probably 5 emails a day of people saying, hey, I got a Kickstarter starting in 3 weeks, right? He just talked about it a little bit. Yes. Realize that it takes time. You got to give them usually a month, at least 2 weeks to get the game to them before they're going to have a video live, right? So one is plan it out, okay? So plan out time to send them, right? Also, find the right person, and also research the people you're sending the game to, because especially with Kickstarter with these timelines, sure, if you want to save money and you want to give it to someone who maybe isn't as experienced, and you're going to expect them to do it for free, well, when they drop the ball and you don't have your Kickstarter video in time, don't be surprised. Because this is a lot of work. The industry is very busy. We were just talking about this. I've got 17 Kickstarter videos to do between now and mid-March. Well, what does that mean? That means I've got to prioritize. That means I got to answer all these emails. That's I got to go back and forth with the rules. Yep. There's a lot going on, but that's why we get paid to do this, is because we study, we learn what we're doing, and we have a process to do that. So expect that if you want to be handled professionally and that you want the video to look professionally and be working with this person in a professional relationship and do what they say they're going to do, expect to pay money for that. Yeah. And if you want to cut corners, this is not the place to do it, because that is the best marketing money you can spend, is have someone that you trust put your baby in its best light.
I mean, I'm a little bit on the opposite end, right? Because I work in film. So if you want your game out in 2 weeks, and you're asking us, generally most people are gonna say no. And especially when you got 17 games, like I specialize in Kickstarter stuff. That's mainly what I put my time into. And people contact me and they say, 3 weeks, I need it. And I'm like, well, I could do that. It's going to cut away from my, a Sunday where I take a break or whatever. But if you're willing to pay me for a preview video or whatever, then that's fine. But it's going to, obviously there's a cost in speedy fee or whatever those kind of things are. And I think that's important for you to know. Like, if you're going to be doing this kind of stuff, you definitely want to have a timeline dedicated to when you want to have your game sent. But otherwise, I'd be happy to, because if you're basically a client to me, right? And clients mean that I'm going to make sure that I get the job done for you, all while still maintaining my integrity as a reviewer. And I think that's a big thing for all of us, is maintaining our integrity to our viewers, because that's very, very important to us. Well, at the same time, clients are going to help us be able to, continue in the industry and all that kind of stuff. They kind of facilitate us in some way. I mean, some people do Kickstarter campaigns. I don't know if you guys do that or not, for funding or Patreon and all these other great mechanisms. But when it comes to preview videos or any kind of marketing and stuff like that, we'd probably all facilitate marketing in some way, maybe Instagram or whatever. And so we want to help our clients out. And if I can, I will. I mean, right now is the huge busy season right now, so I couldn't do it 2 weeks now. But there are certain times where I'll go, oh, really? Okay, we can see how it works.
And to piggyback off of what these guys are saying, lead time it cannot be understated. I've had Kickstarters reach out to me 2, 3 months in advance. And I'm like, awesome, well done. So that tells me that you
They're
value
ready.
you
They
value
know.
my time, first off, and second, that you have your stuff together. That, oh, you know what? You have already got your ducks in a row and you're reaching out ahead of time. So that gets us off on the right foot, number one. Number two, don't be dear reviewer. You go straight into the trash. You owe me the response or the respect. Do the research. Who are we?
Mass email.
What's our name?
Yeah.
Right? Take 5 minutes. Go to our website. Go to heavycardboard.com. Read about us. Our bios are on there, or any of us. Don't send out a mass email. It's just common sense. Would you like to receive that? Because we don't. They go straight into the trash. You don't value my time, I'm not going to value yours. And then to go back, while we don't do preview reviews, we do playthroughs and teaching videos. And for those, we charge. Because for us, while I don't begrudge anybody that charges because you're charging for your time ultimately. For us, it's informational. We're presenting the game in a professional manner. We've invested in ourselves. So if you want us to dedicate our time to you, yes, we expect to be compensated for that. Again, there's a level of respect that should go both ways between the creators on that side that are creating the games, as well as the content creators that are creating the audience. Because ultimately, there's nobody on this panel that you're hiring. You're hiring our audience. And we've cultivated those. We've earned those. We've built those over years. So that's ultimately what you want access to. We've worked at that. Why should we give that for free?
For me, I think it's expectations that get lost in translation. So somebody will send me an email, be like, hey, I want you to do a review on a board game. And then that's like all they will put on that email. And I'm like, wow, thanks, guys. Okay. Well, I'm going to need a little bit more information from you, especially newer designers and stuff like that are just coming out into the market, and they're looking for somebody to just kind of help them out. Putting in the specifics. Hey, our Kickstarter's starting this time. I like what you do. I would like you to do something like this that's on your channel for ours. I expect you to go ahead and post it on your Facebook, Instagram, and such. Maybe you want it posted several times or something, or a follow-up. Like, I need to know that information ahead of time, because somebody will come to me and say, hey, I want you to review my board game, here it is. And then I get no expectations, and I try to get information from them. And then later on I find out that they also wanted me to come down to a game store, or they wanted me to post it on my channel a couple times, or they didn't like the background or lighting or something. I mean, like, you have to kind of tell us also what you want, I mean, it's going to be in our own eyes and what we produce, and with our character behind it, but you still need to let us know what you're thinking in your mind as well.
And the other thing is, help us promote it. We're one voice. You double it.
Right.
By helping us, whether it's being on the Kickstarter, sending an update, hey, so-and-so just updated just uploaded their review or their live stream or whatever it is. Here, go check them out, that type thing. That's another thing.
That's a big one too, because we run into a couple times where they pay us to do this preview, but then they don't even put the video on the Kickstarter page. I'm like, why did you even bother then? I mean,
yeah.
it's silly to me that happens. And then we also, on the other side of that, we tend to get folks that think of these more as reviews, and they're really just to give you a feel for the game.
Overviews,
yeah. And so we'll say up front and at the end, hey, this is a paid preview. And we might say a couple things that we liked about the game, but ultimately we say, hey, if this is like a game you're interested in, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support. We are not there to say, you have to buy this game. We're there to say, here's what it looks like.
Regardless, it's a commercial, right?
Yeah,
and that's
right.
good.
Yeah.
That's important. That producers, you want to say something about?
Oh, no, the one last thing, too, that no one's brought up. I mean, we're all on social media. We're all on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Engage with us if you're an up-and-coming publisher. Like, get to know Oh, so we can get to know you, engage with us, so then other people can see what your company is all about, and that's a really important thing.
It's a people business.
A lot of us reviewers are really close with, like, we're happy to talk to designers and whatnot. You can
Oh, absolutely.
Build
straight up
relationships.
Yeah.
on Facebook.
Exactly.
I'm available. If you're messaging me now, I'll get to you very shortly.
Yeah, we're all online.
Some maybe not so much more than others, but I mean maybe the.
We'll go with her then, and then we'll shut up with you. Good.
How often do you guys say you need to do an updated podcast? Like, is it always something new, or
So how often do we have to do an updated podcast? What do you mean?
How much content do we push out?
How
Okay.
often are we
So-
putting out content?
Is that the
No,
question? How
it's
much? How
definitely-
often? Okay, so the question was, how often are you guys putting out content? Okay.
So as far as podcasts go, our podcast is just kind of something we do on the side almost for fun. So it's just whenever we do. But videos and stuff are very much where our core is and where we started. So we try to do anywhere from, currently I'm on a track to do 2 to 4 a week. And that's just the standard videos. Then there's all these little side videos. Like I have a couple different segments on Board Game Blender. There's Favorite Game Friday. There's all kinds of other little places that I show up. So those are just ongoing things that I do. And then I've even gone to Edward's place and we did a couple live streams. And so I'm bouncing around different places. So it just varies week to week. But like I said, there's probably at least 2 to 4 videos a week at minimum. But the podcast is just whenever.
I mean, if you're starting out, I would say the number one thing you can possibly do, and it doesn't matter how much you do of it, is be consistent.
Yes, definitely.
I mean, I don't even care if it's one a month, one a year.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Do what you can do
Yes.
and be consistent so that your audience knows when it's going to be there.
Expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to meet them.
Yeah, for us, so our podcast, we didn't have anything else. We just started with our podcast. We started fortnightly, so every 2 weeks is when we did it. And you know what? Your listeners or your viewers or whatever, you get them used to a certain, okay, hey, it's the second Thursday of the month. Okay, I expect show X. So then, as we got heavier into it, every 2 weeks, or actually, sorry, it was twice a month. Then it went to every 2 weeks, which, some weeks have 5 weeks in them, whatever. Then it went to weekly, and now that I'm full-time and we have a YouTube channel, now we put out 1 podcast a week. We usually do 2 other pieces of podcast content in a week, and then we do anything from 3 to 5 live streams during the week as well. But again, that's now that I'm full-time. The big thing is, I would say do it once or twice a month, I think would be reasonable to get started, and then just be consistent.
Right.
That's the biggest thing.
Depends on what you
Yes.
want too, though, right? Like, because for instance, if you're into analytics, like Google and whatnot, or YouTube, there's certain prerogatives that they will, certain characteristics that they're looking for, 10-minute videos or whatever. There's certain things that they say, or every day you got to post a video. So it really depends on if you want to engage in that. Like that's like a higher tier,
The
I
metrics.
guess.
Yeah,
If
I
you
think
want
so.
to- I
Yeah.
specifically will do that. I look at, okay, I want roughly about a 10-minute video somewhere around there, and I want to do it maybe 1 video a day, Monday through Friday, or 1 video a week on Monday at this specific time. It's good for your audience, which is engagement, which is what they're talking about, which is
Yeah.
awesome. Consistency, showing, okay, I know it's Saturday, it's time to go ahead and watch Heavy Cardboard or whatever, right? That's perfect. But also there's the other side, which is having to do with analytics and how Google is going to respond to you when you're putting out content and who they're going to show it to, because it does that.
Exactly. Like when are people on your website, and then you can do a deep dive into all the metrics of the Google Analytics
it's a good thing
and
to do
see
that,
that,
yeah.
and then you can set goals for that to produce your content. So that's a big thing
But-
that I love looking into.
And they're spot on. But when you're getting started, be consistent. Do it. You know what? I assume you all have day jobs. Do it when you can.
Yes.
Do it as often as you can. Just be consistent with
That's
it.
the top-
So
that's the
decide
top
it
tier.
going in.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
I-
always better to do more. What is it? Under offer or undersell and over deliver. Better to go that direction than the other.
Yes.
We got time for one more question. I think you had your hand up, right? Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, so the question for
Good
the audio
question.
is, how do you handle games that you don't like? Why don't you, we've been starting from that way all day. Why don't you start from this way?
Okay. If I don't like a game, I will tell people the target audience for that game, because I know I'm a hardcore gamer, and if I'm playing Sushi Go or something, and I don't particularly like card games, I go, you know what? I love this game because it has fantastic art, and this is for the type of gamer that loves, you know, card games, or this is the type of game for the gamer that loves deck buildings, or this is the type of game that my grandma would love to play. And I highlight the game for the audience. So that's how I do it, because I think that it doesn't give them a negative review, and I'm not like kind of casting myself out by giving negative reviews to everybody, but I'm also highlighting why the war gamer should not purchase this game.
And for us, we really don't have a problem doing negative reviews. We promise 3 things. When we talk to a publisher or designer, we ask for a review copy, or they offer one. We promise fair, honest, and thorough. That's it. The game dictates what the review is. So as long as we are those 3 things, again, it goes back to that respect, and it's a mutual respect between the publisher side and designer as well as us. We respect that they spent the time and effort to create this, so I'm not going to completely negate their effort. There's always positives that you can highlight in a given game. It could be the artwork, it could be the graphic design, it could be a certain mechanism or the theme, or you can find things to highlight and not go whole negative. However, if you're doing those 3 things, then you have a bigger responsibility to your listeners and your viewers than you do to the publishing side, that you have to be honest. You have to be not just what you don't like, but the most important thing, in my opinion, in being a reviewer is why. Because you have to give the context to the person who's consuming your media and tell them, okay, I didn't like this, and here's why. Because what I might not like, you might actually enjoy. And so they're like, oh, that doesn't bother me. Oh, so you actually turn a negative review into a positive for somebody that enjoys the aspects of the game, of a game that you didn't. And so there's a balance that you have to find.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I do positive or negative reviews. I just do reviews that have both pros and cons, regardless of the game. Most games I do actually have way more pros than cons. That's because I have 50 other games that I've already play tested that are sitting in my garage, and I tend to like what I'm talking about if I'm more excited about the game, which is why most of my reviews are more positive than negative. When I get through the ones that I'm most excited to play with, then I'll start getting to the ones that I'm not as excited, and there'll be more cons than pros. But much like what they said, it's always a matter of this game might be too cutthroat for some. It was a positive for me, but it might be a negative for you, and vice versa, as he was saying. So always try to put it in that light as to, if this game wasn't for you, why was it? What are your biases, generally in speaking? And then for a general audience, what does that mean to them? And that's pretty much how I handle it. But be warned that as soon as you say anything negative, you'll put out a review that's glowing, and you'll get no comments. And you'll put out something that has lots of negative stuff that was well thought out, that was even respectfully done, and get ready for the storm to come, because the designer's going to start emailing you, the publisher might even email you, the people that are the fans of that game are going to start commenting how you said a rule wrong, so you must have played it wrong, so you're not qualified to do it. And it's like, yeah, well, I did say something wrong in the overview, but that's, so just be warned that when you do say negative things, you're going to get way more bad attention in that regard than anything, and you're just going to be able to let it roll off your back.
Right. And we have categories for all our reviews, so generally there's something positive, like the artwork is great, but boy, the mechanics didn't work for me. And we're really clear to say this game or this didn't work for me. I never say to the audience, this is a terrible game and it won't work for you, avoid it. It's all about how it didn't work for me, or it didn't work for Randy, or this is not really a game that, I'm more into thematic games, so this game didn't really appeal to me. It's more along those lines, and I say why. And the why is the important part about why didn't this appeal to me? I found that I'm just pushing cubes around. Yay. That's
Cube pusher.
So those are the kinds of things that we try to put it back on us on why we didn't like it. It's not so much about this is a terrible game and you should avoid it. So, and again, because we have 6 different categories, there's potentially always something that has something positive we can say about the game. And we're not purposefully trying to do something positive, but it usually ends up that way. That wow, the artwork was beautiful. I just wish there was more game here.
Yeah,
Missing game.
definitely.
Yeah, and that's the same thing that I do. If we as gamers, sometimes we all start clumping together. We play all the same type of games with all similar different types of people, but there's a whole world out there that are new gamers, family gamers. And so, if you don't like a game, I do the same classification. Like, this is a great party game for people who like these types of mechanics. And this is a thing that I've been finding out with the new podcast. There are people just getting into the game. It's like, oh, I've never heard of this game, but like, this sounds really cool, So basically, just there's a whole world out there, and there's a game for everyone, and that's
Right.
So these guys are all pretty much on point with me. I mean, realistically, it's all a subjective opinion, and you're going to take it or leave it, however you want. But for me, there is objectively bad games, I think, games that are not finished or done. And if you're working with prototypes or Kickstarter stuff, you'll see that there's literally no way to finish this game. This game doesn't even have an ending. You can't. How do you lose? You can't. And in that case, I can say, bad game. And in that case, I actually send it out. I go, no, I can't do this. I'm going to give this back to you. And if you ask me for a preview, no, because I can't. But I've played with a bunch of people. And what's cool about what we do at Unfiltered Gamer is we have 5 or 6 different people one night and then 5 or 6 different people another night. And if I hate the game, what's really cool is I have people that actually will do the review instead of me that enjoyed it way more, which is awesome.
Outsourcing again?
Yeah, outsourcing.
That's helpful.
I got rule editors, I got editors. No, but seriously, like, there's a couple of games I can think of one off the top of my head that I hated. But I know for a fact there's people who really love the game, right? And so I say, okay, why is it? What is it about me that doesn't like this game? And how can I say, okay, there's certain people they're going to love this game, right? Roll and move is something I hate, but there are certain people I've had play certain these games, and they're like, oh, I love this game. I'm like, okay, you do it then.
So the last thing that I wanted to bring up as a reviewer is the ugly side of things, and these guys kind of touched on it. It's the internet.
Yes.
You deal with
The
it.
internet.
So it's I'm still learning this, and I'm 3.5 years into this. You got to learn to just let it roll
Thick
off.
skin.
Yeah, definitely.
Having thick skin, and for anybody that either watches this after the fact or listens to it, or anybody out there that isn't a reviewer and doesn't want to be, just remember that we're real people on this side of the mic, on the camera, on all that. And
then
you know what? Just keep that in mind. Yeah. But just learn to have thick skin, and it's a process. It very much is a process.
And then just a thing too, like with Gloryhound and I have a whole different set of problems on the internet.
Oh, yes.
As being females in the industry, so that's a thing to also just raise, and it's a thing that happens.
Yeah, it does. And you like you said, you have to let it roll off your shoulder, and just keep putting yourself out there, you know? I mean, you can't let that hold you back.
Majority of the community is awesome.
Yeah.
And this is where that passion comes
Yeah.
in.
Absolutely.
And it's always amazing to me too how, I mean, I'm 4 or 5 years into this, and still you get 1,000, even if it's 1,000 comments about how great it was, that one negative is so loud. It's so loud.
And the best thing to do if you're just starting
So
out,
upsetting.
because it's going to happen eventually, every positive thing that you get sent to, email, anything like that, not only respond, but put it in a little folder.
Yeah.
Because there
Oh,
are gonna
that's
be,
so cool.
Every time I get lasers shot at me, I just go to that folder and I read all the nice things people have said, and it makes it so much easier.
My wife, I had a real dark day not too long ago, and regarding the show. And then on the other side of it, had a really amazing day. Those are pretty few and far between because I'm always trying to focus on what's next or whatever. And my wife, Amanda, she said, why don't you write yourself a letter right now while you're on that high, so that you can go back
And read it later.
and read it and remind yourself of why you're doing it and why you're putting yourself out there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So last thing is there anything else? I was gonna say how people can get in touch with us and go from
a
there.
little contact.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm
Go ahead and start over there.
at Gloryhound with 2 Ds on Twitter and Instagram, Mr. Gloryhound at gmail.com, and In Glory We Trust on Facebook.
And if you Google Heavy Cardboard, we'll come up. Amanda's Twitter is at Amanda U. Ours is at Heavy Cardboard. Just go to heavycardboard.com. You'll find everything for us.
For me, it's GameBoyGeek.com. Everything's there on the upper right.
Yeah, and mine's BoardGameCorner.com, or you can find me on the Dice Tower site as well. So.
And I'm Meeple Lady on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. My website is Board Game Meeple Lady. Also, our podcast is Hooked on Geek, and that's also online on Twitter and Instagram.
Unfiltered Gamer, Google it, .com, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc. And there's a live stream we do every Wednesday at 7:30 where we get to play all the Kickstarter games, which is fun.
Fantastic.
Well, we'd like to thank all you guys for taking the time to sit here and ask questions and your interest in the hobby.
So, yeah.
And we're going to have to shut up, but we can answer your question offline. Oh, yeah.
What's your guys' favorite social media?
Okay. We'll take that offline because they got to cut off the time because I think there's another thing starting. Thank you.